Railway Operations Safety Rules, July 18, July 3. Definitions relevant to the railroad, Navy railroad operations, and AN railway car is the end of the railway car opposite the B and break end, a section of track which no train is permitted to enter with its occupied another train, and is set for prescribed and governed directives as an absolute block. An adapter rolling bearings, a cast fitting that is between the axle rolling bearings. The truck side frame transfers the load to the side frame of the bearing. The attention of the measuring ability of the locomotive driving wheels to accept the rotational force without slipping on the rails, usually expressed as a percent of total weight of the drivers. The air brake, the brake system used on all rail cars. The air brake hose, a flexible hose that is in the end of the railway, which is threaded into and braked and pipe angled and cocked to one end that has a glad end fitting onto the other, which has an engaging with a similar coupling on an adjoining car. The ampere, the fundamental measures of electrical current. 1 amp is defined as the current that flows in potential 1 volt impressed and 1 resistant of 1 ohm. An angle bar, a tool steel bar used in joining rail ends together to confirm the continuous track. Angle cock, a special type of 1 1/4 value of the either ball plug design located at both ends of the brake pipe. Locomotives, railway cars use to control admission of air into the brake pipe of the individual car. The free end is engaged at 45-degree angle and is threaded to receive the thread end of the air hose. The B end of the car, the end of which is the handbrake, is located, commonly used in L and R, designed either on the left or the right of which is facing the B and the i.e. BL or BR or AL or N as in AR. Ballast, angular crushed stones used in placement on the railroad bed, is purposely holding the track in line to ensure proper surface and distribute transfer railway loads from the subgrade provided in the drainage. That is the ballast. Barricaded siding, a siding with concrete either wall to continue hazardous materials loaded cars. Bearing journals. A general term is described as a bearing arrangement of each axle in a railway car truck. The plain journal bearings are also known as friction bearings. Block of metal, usually brass or bronze shaped, is to fit the curved surface of the axle journal and is restricting directly up to the bearing limit. Lubrication provided by free oil contained of the journal and box. The journal roller bearings are sealed assembly and roller races. Cups or cones pressed onto axle journals, generally located to the grease. Vertical loads of transferring from the journal bearings to the truck side from the journal bearing wedge or plain bearing design or throughout rolling bearing adapter in the rolling bearing trucks. The bleed is the removal of the railway car brake system ABD. The railway brake valves, all brake cylinders to bleed with the saving in the air reservoir on the car, or if desired in the entire car or the system is can bleed. AB car, rail car brake valves bleeded in the entire system. The block of the length of the track is defined and limits of the use of control by block occupancy directives. Blue flag. A blue flag is a blue flag by day, a blue light by night. Displayed at one or both ends of the locomotives. Car, train, track indicating the workmen are and under and between or around the equipment. The equipment is the protection should not be moved or coupled into. Body bolster. The transverse member of a railway car under the frame, which is located over the truck's transmit, loaded, carried in longitude of sills of the trucks that throughout the center of the plates. The brake beam, the supportive structure of 2 brake heads and 2 brake shoes acting upon any given wheels. A steel cylinder attached to a body frame of the track frame and railway car that applies to when they supply the air pressure. The air pressure is released and piston is returned into its normal position and release spring coiled and about the piston rod inside the cylinder. The brake pipe, the section of the brake pipe is of a car locomotive which is supplies in the pipe of reserve and means with the car brakes are controlled by the engine man who is in the train and is made up. All brakes on the cars are joined in the entire pipeline and compromises it commonly in called the train line. A brake rod, a rod that which connects the brake levers through in which braking force is transmitted. A brake shoe, a block of friction material that is fit the curved surface of the tread of a wheel that is riveted other than wise and bonded and sealed and back plating and having provisions for quick and positive securements of brake head. A brake or a conventional railroad car depends on a frictional created by brake shoe rubbing on the wheel during a brake application. Braking shoes should be used in cast iron and made of cast iron and high friction composition material because of their differing friction characteristics of cast iron composition. Shoes are not interchangeable. Brake valve, the valve of the locomotive which the engineer operates on the brakes is a term and refer to the total control of the valve and car. The bridge tie, a transverse tie resting in stringers of the bridge supporting the rail. The buffer force, the force of the drawbar that compresses the pushers of a drawbar that buffs the force tends to push the train together. A buffer car, a railroad car that's between a locomotive and an occupied railway car and a railway car transporting hazardous material. A standard area of incoming, outgoing cars, commercial cars, are as a bullpen. The capacity, the normal load in pounds and gallons in railway cars per carry. These figures are stenciled in on the car and identified as CAPI. The CAPI's capacity is not to be confused with the load limit. The maximum weight of the load is in the given car. If the center plate forged state wheel plate riveted, welded, and to be bolstered into the truck bolster and railway center, the function which is transfer the body bolster to load the trucks through the truck bolster. The center still, the main longitude structure maintained from the railway car underframe, often constructed out of a large boxer section or a hat section. The center still receives the buff and drafted forces created in train handling and switching. Clearance is a railway dimension that cannot be exceeded. The compression joint is the joint that's designed to connect the rails to different height and cross sections. Consistent is to make the freight train and type of cars in their context makeup. The COTS, the acronym Clean Oil Test and Stencil, is referred to the periodic servicing of a railway car breaker system components. A coupler is the device used to connect the railway. Any rail car locomotive coupler includes a draw head, linked pins, and knuckles. A coupler extension, a metal connector that attaches the railway car locomotive couplers permits additional swing and operation of closed curves. Crane rail used to support cranes. Crossing highway, the point of railway road track that road crosses a grade and highway crossing are normally protected by signs and signs of flashing lights and signs of flashing lights and gates. The crossing rail, the point of two railroad tracks intersect the grade. The railroad crossings are normally protected by a stop sign or a directive specifying operating method to be followed. A crossover, two turnouts the track arranged to form a continuous page between the nearby generally parallel tracks. Current traffic, the movement of trains are on the main track in one direction specified by the rules. The cut of the track, a string or two or more cars coupled together. A defective card, a card that is used in a railroad acknowledging the responsibility of physical damage done to or not owned by railroad card, granting the authority to bill the issuing carrier for the cost of the repairs according to the Code of Interchanging Rules published of the acquisition of the American Railroad. The derail safety devices attached to one side of the siding and storage that will cause the railway car to derail in the event of the rails and free in the direction that could cause a major accident, used to protect the main lines and sensitive load areas, and double track two parallel main tracks. Draft force is the force draft per force on the draw. The draft force is the force of the draw bar that depends on the pull on the drawbar. The draft force tends to pull the train apart. The draft system is the term used to arrangement of the railway cars for transmitting couplers for center cylinder railway cars out of the draft system into the coupler yoke, draft gear, and follower draft gear, draft lugs, draft seal on the cushion. Cars, either hydraulic end of the car or the cushion uses an attachment, places the draft gear yoke at the end of each end and a hydraulically controlled siding center and installed an integral part of the underframe. The drawbar is the coupler head and the shank, and the end of the train device is the ETO. The device that contains a flashing end of the train marker. The engine mechanism is a converting energy into steam, air, and other gas under pressure into a mechanical energy in the form of motion of a steam engine, diesel engine, or gasoline engine. The feed valve and automatically maintains predetermined pressure of air through the brake that automatically brakes to fix and signals and signal fix indication of condition of affecting the movement of the train and locomotive. The flange way, the only open way to structures which it provides and passes is wheels flanges. The friction bearing, seat bearing on the page, and frog, a track structure is intersection of two running rails provided the support of the passengers. A flange permitted wheels on either rail across or other. Full service application, a manipulation made by the engineer on the air brakes, the valve handle, auxiliary reserve pressure, and brake cylinder pressure, and is equalized. And full service application reduction to reserve the pressure that it cannot be made without applying the emergency braking. Full service application in 26 pounds for 90 pounds of brake pressure. The glad hand is the metal fitting of the free end of each hair hose. The glad hand designed to provide quick positive connection and air codes in adjacent cars. Grade horizontal, the horizontal track curvature expressed either in the either in the degrees or the radii feet, and the amount of central angle is subtended by a chord of 100 feet. Excused. 11 minutes and 32 seconds, man. Agree. A horizontal curvature expressed in the degrees of radii and feet of the amount of center angle sustained in a chord of 100 feet. The grade vertical, the percentage change in the elevation of the long double distance ensured in traverse 1% and equal to change the elevation in 1 foot of the 100-foot track. Grade crossing highway guardrail, a rail that is structural laid parallel to running rails to the track to prevent wheels from being derailed and hold the wheels in correct alignment to prevent flanges from striking points, turning, cross out frogs, and point out switches. Handbrake device made by railway cars, locomotives, means for applying brakes manually, air presses. Common types of vertical, horizontal, wheels level and type, so named configuration, orientation of operating, and handles. HERO, the acronym of the hazardous of electromagnet radiation to ordnance. The hazard is a condition of accident accident contributed to the severity of an accident. The hazardous material that is hazardous, especially hazardous materials, explosive, poisons, flammable liquids, corrosive substances, oxides, radioactive materials, respective landing, transportation vehicle, and the terms of identified as the relating subjected to the safety of the requirements. The hot box, overheated roll or journal bearings, idler car, a usual flat car transportation of a long article of shipment which is extended to beyond the limits of the car and car of the idler being car on which the shipment of the article does not rest or overhang. The interchange of commercial cars from railroad to another common junction point. Interchange at the end of regulations is the AAR, American Association of American Railroads, governing the care of the height of the handling freight cars operating interchangeable services. The joint, the fastened down, designed to unite and abutting the ends of a continuous rail. A joint bar, one of the two steel bars of rail joining the rail pit from continuous tracks, sometimes called the angle bar. The joint operation track supporting operation two or more than railroad controlled by one source. The journal box, the metal housing of the plane truck, which includes the journal of the car and the axle and the journal bearing and wedges in which holds the oil and lubricating devices. The journal back braces and journal braces are another term sometimes they're referring to plain journal bearings. Knuckle, the pivoting hold of the cast in the head of the coupler rotates a vertical pin in the opposite open position to engage mating coupler and to the other closed position when fully engaged. The knuckle pin, a steel pin, the knuckle in the head of the coupler. The braking of the certain locomotive automatic brake valves which retains the brake pressure and selected by the operator. A lead track, an extended track that contains either the end of the yard or the main track. The maximum weight load is a railway car designing the freight car. The freight car standards AAR design criteria. The load limit to exact is equal in maximum allowed gross weights of rails determined by the axle and the wheel size, the light of the weight of the car, and the load is stenciled on the freight car is conjoined on the capacity of lightweight is into abbreviated load limit. The locomotive is self-propelled, in which vehicle designed to convert electrical, mechanical, and energy into tractive effort of the modal movement of the rail cars. The main reservoir, a cylinder track tank carried on locomotive and to hold the supply of compressed air, and the main reserve is distinct and auxiliary emergency reservoirs under each car. The main track is a track extension ended through the yards between the stations upon which is trains operated in central control. The MU, the multi-unit locomotive, is more than one power unit connected to another by controlling one of the power units. A new NEW, a net explosive weight, and NET, a net explosive tonnage. The PC switch, the pneumatic control switch that is automatically opens during an emergency brake application reduces the power outlet of the locomotive, and the PC switch is automatically resets itself down to the throttle of the idle controlled and the brake, and is covered often by the referred of the power cutoff switch. The plane switch is the plane bearing, C bearing, reservoir auxiliary, a compressed air storage tank is the part of the air brake that equipment and compressed in the air is auxiliary reservoir admitted to the brake cylinder to the trains of the pipe and pressure reduced. The auxiliary reservoir is isolated from the emergency reservoir by a separate plate in between them. The reserve emergency, a compressed air storage tank that holds an air brake equipment on each car. Air stored in the emergency brake reservoir is which is applied the brake during the application, assist to realizing the brakes or recharging the system during the brake release operation. The right of the way is a strip of the land railroad track that is built. The rolling bearings, seat bearing, rolling stock, and equipment of rolls wheels includes cars, trucks, heavy equipment, maintaining handle equipment, but excludes skid-mounted equipment. For example of generations, running rail, the rail of the surface is treaded on the wheel bars, running track, a track that is reserved and movement for the yard. The safety applications of anyone that specifies a component which should be on the car and safety is the plane. Alliances, the train crew, other personnel who have duties to be there around equipment and safety appliances. Once again, safety appliances. Anyone who safety appliances. Anyone who has several specific components which should be on the railway cars. Safety appliances are on the train crew members and other persons whose duties require them to be on or around the equipment. Safety appliances on cars include handle brakes, handhold, ladders, uncoupling levers, sill steps, and safety railings. Shoulders, the portion of the ballast between the end of the tie and the two of the ballast. Slope, the load-bearing component located in the truck bolster and the range and the absorbed vertical horizon of the truck and motion of the railway car, and various types of the serry bearings ranging in the flat pads of the complex devices of maintaining constant contact with the structure of the car body. The side, outside members of underframe and under edges of the railway car. A track auxiliary to the main track is the siding, the single track, one track that operates in a direction distinguished from double or multi-track. Stooping, a condition of the engine blows out the exhaust and continues to cause blade cinders in which the piston rings are properly seated. And spark shield, a plate that's located in the bottom of the railway car wheels designed to deflect the spark from being combustible components. Speed normal, the maximum speed authorized. The speed restricted, a speed reduction defined by directive. A spring switch, a track switch that springs on mechanism automatically returns the switch points into normal position after display to passengers railway cars into the trailing point movement. The stub of the track is the track connected by the running track at the one end, usually protected by the ends of bumping posts and solid obstruction. The surface track, the condition of the track is vertical and other smoothness. Suspect of the car, railway car, unknown contents. Any straight portion of railway alignment means and straight ends with no curves, and track construction and the cross members of the railway ends attached to tie plate, steel plate, interposed in a railway tie. The top of the cough of the trail on the flat car containing a car, the track car equipped on there, operated on the track as such a motor car handled in the trailer and either on them until the standard railway track cars. Truck gauge, a device which is gauged, establishes and measures it, and track switch is the turnout. The track motor is specially designed directly considering the serious wound motor mounted on a truck locomotives to drive the axles. A user enforcing the wheels and locomotives or rails for pulling a train, a trailing movement, a movement of trailing points of switch from space and direction in the train. And movement, a training locomotive with or without operating as one unit. A training crew notice, a hard copy reference for train crews that contain the information of maintaining a safe operation. Notice usually located at crews and easily read and review them before during the railroad operation. The train line is a term expressly devised to continuous line of brake pipe extending from the locomotive to the last car of the train, which all cars and air hose are coupled. The truck and an assembly of the part of wheels, axles, bearings, and side frames, bolsters, brake ribbing, springs, and also connecting components function of which to provide mobility or guidance to the railway car. The truck frame, a structure of cast steel to one place with the journal boxes, pedestals, springs, and other attached, which forms skeleton of a truck and one piece of a truck, generally used for freight car, often found on locomotives and passenger car. A truck bearing, side bearing, a bearing that rolls on the elastic fastened to the top surface of the baluster and functions of the composition body sold and supported loaded moving car when cross-trail level causes the body to the rock transversely in the center plates. Truck springs are generally described as several springs used in the suspension systems of the trucks to provide a degree of vertical cushioning for the car's load. The turnout is a switch of the frog closure, the means of which is known as the truck diverted from one track to another. Another name is track switch. The wheel flange is a projection extended completely around the inner rim of the wheel in a friction conjunction of the flange, mate wheel, and keep the wheel and set on the track and limiting of the movement assembly assigned against the surface of either rail with a wheel between the hub of the rim and the wheel rim, the portion of the outer circumference of the wheel, the edge of the tread, the thickness of the measure of the amount of wear remaining on the wheel. The wheel tread is tapered exterior running surfaces that come into contact with top surfaces of the rail and serves as the brake drum on the cars and ventral brake arrangements. Wide tracks, a train arrangement of tracks, the locomotive train arrangement of tracks which locomotives, cars and trains may be termed Y tracks. A yard is a system of tracks which define and used in makeup of trains and cars. The storage and other purpose yard limits of tracks where yard operate and procedures apply. Locomotive and propulsion, braking and system, power generation systems. The new equipment fleet of the movement of railway cars consists of diesel-electric locomotives along with pure car movers in selective locations. These electric locomotives used to